If you care about heart rate accuracy for the Galaxy Watch 8, then there's one thing that you really must know. I'm Kelsey, the Wearable Whisperer, and I have a data science master's degree from the University of California in Berkeley, and I worked at Fitbit as a data scientist for a few years before starting this YouTube channel. Now, I've just finished my initial round of testing. I've done enough tests that I now feel confident reporting on my heart rate accuracy results. So let's get into it. All right, so a few notes before I show you the plots. So for each workout, I do wear a Polar H10 chest strap, and this is going to be the assumed accurate heart rate value that we're going to compare the watches against. I also only wear a single watch on each wrist. And I have also been testing both sizes of the Galaxy Watch 8. So I have the 44mm Galaxy Watch 8 as well as the 40mm Galaxy Watch 8. So let's start by looking at my indoor spin. So here we have heart rate on the y-axis and we have duration in minutes on the x-axis. And the dots in red are the Polar H10 heart rate values, and the dots in blue are the Galaxy Watch 8 40mm sized heart rate values. So as you can see here, the red and blue dots pretty much overlap. There's maybe a tiny little off there, but not that big of a deal. And I don't really see any major, maybe a little thing here, but I also went from about 132 beats per minute here to 169 beats per minute in just the course of a few minutes. And it looks like it followed the rise in heart rate there pretty accurately. Did have a little blip here maybe, but otherwise, looking at this in general, this is quite good matching up for heart rate values. So I'm going to go ahead and show now the Galaxy Watch 8 44mm, which I wore on my opposite wrist for the same indoor spin workout. And everything's the same, except here the Galaxy Watch 8 44mm is now in the black color. So we have almost the same exact following of the Polar chest strap. There's maybe a little tiny blip here and a couple little things here. But overall, in general, this looks quite good to my eye. Now, I can also plot the black and the blue dots together. So this is the 44mm in black and 40mm in blue, and just showing how the two Galaxy watches perform. The only difference here is they were on a different wrist, so they're not 100% overlapping, but in some cases they are, so it's very good, and they both look really good on this increase in heart rate here, so I'm very happy with that. And finally, we can add back in the chest strap and just look at all three devices, and again, this is a quite good heart rate accuracy time series plot, in my opinion. So looking at that time series plot, as it's called, can be useful, but it's even more useful to look at what's called a correlation plot. So here I have a correlation plot made for the same indoor spin, and we are comparing the Polar H10 chest strap here on the x-axis to the Galaxy Watch 8 40mm on the y-axis. Now these are the heart rates plotted against each other. So for each point in time, what was the heart rate of the Polar H10? Put that on the x-axis. And what was the heart rate of the Galaxy Watch 8? Put that on the x-axis. Now, each little blue dot here represents 1 second of data. And the darker blue dots just mean that there's more data overlapping. So these lighter blue dots means there's only one or a few data points there. This solid red line, as you'll see, it goes through the 45-degree angle of this plot. This is the ideal. So ideally, every single blue dot on this line or in this graph would show up on this line, because ideally the Polar H10 heart rate reading would be exactly the same as the Galaxy Watch 8 heart rate reading. Well, in practice, that's not always the case because it's not perfect. But the closer to this line that the dots are, the better the accuracy. So you can see up here, actually, at the higher heart rates, so like when I was at 169 on the Polar H10 chest strap, it looks like I was at 169 on the Galaxy Watch 8. And I was looking at my wrist at that time, and I can verify I did visually see it on the watch that it was also reading 169. So here it actually does quite well, sticking to the ideal red line here at the higher heart rates. Over here, it does go both above and below. So when the dots are below the red line, that means that the Galaxy Watch 8 was reading lower than the Polar chest strap. When they are above the line, that means the Galaxy Watch 8 was reading higher heart rate than the Polar H10 chest strap. So that's visually what it looks like. Over here, I have provided the correlation value. So this value is a maximum of 1.0. So the higher and closer to 1 it is, the more correlated it is. So this is 0.9953, which is very good. This bias is just a number reflecting how off or tilted this is. So if the values if the values here are higher but lower over here, then there's a tilt to the data. So if this is close to 1, that means that there is no tilt or bias to the data. So this 0.993 is very good. This offset is -6 seconds. That's because when you wear a watch on your wrist, it takes a little bit extra time for your heart rate to get higher away from your chest. So the chest strap will read 169 right away, but it might take a few seconds to have that same reading down on your wrist. So the way I analyze this data, I actually I shift the values so that the peaks line up, and then I calculate the result of that lag offset. So this means that the Galaxy Watch 8 was actually about 6 seconds behind the Polar H10 in its readings. This is also the average absolute error, so how far away from the line, whether it's higher or lower, is it 1 beat per minute off, 2, 3, 4, etc. Here I'm showing there's a maximum of 7, so that's probably somewhere around here. It was 7 beats per minute higher than the Polar H10. And taking an average of all those, it says on average the absolute error was 0.89 beats per minute. So on average it was less than 1 beat per minute off, so that's very good as well. I'm also calculating missing data, so ideally there should be 1 heart rate value for every second during the workout. In this case, the Galaxy Watch was missing 0.8% of that, and there were 2,078 data points here. So that was a pretty in-depth explanation of the correlation plots, just so you kind of get an understanding. Now I'm going to switch. Here you're going to see this is the 40 millimeter, and now I'm showing the 44 millimeter. So this is for the same workout, so we can kind of compare these two directly. And just first look at the dots here on the plot. So I'm going to go back and forth. So back and forth, you can see they're pretty similar. It's actually hard to tell which one's worse, but here on the 44, it looks like we have a correlation of 0.9949, and if I go back, it was 0.9953, so it was ever so slightly better for the 40 millimeter watch. Bias is about the same, offset was about the same, -5 versus -6 seconds. Average absolute error, 0.91 versus 0.89, essentially the same. So we are getting virtually identical results here with the 2 Galaxy Watch sizes, so that's really great. All right, let's take a look at our first walk here. So again, we have this time series plot. We have heart rate versus duration in minutes. Polar H10 are the red dots. Galaxy Watch 8 40 millimeter are the black dots. And besides a little bit of a lower heart rate here at the beginning, we are seeing a pretty good following of the chest strap here for the 40 millimeter. Now, if we go to the 44 millimeter here, I'm going to have that in blue. And it looks like it did a little bit better here in the beginning following that upward trend, and also does a great job here, even when I get into the 160s for a few minutes on a hill climb. It's looking very good to my eye. And we can compare the 40 and the 44 millimeter, and you can see that difference there where the 44 was actually a little bit higher here compared to the 40. And otherwise it looks pretty close, maybe just a few little dips here and there. And if we bring back the chest strap to show all of them, you see again, this is very good lining up of the heart rate data, save for a little bit here in the beginning. All right, so let's take a look at the correlation plots for this walk. So first we have the 40 millimeter, And now I'll change to the 44 millimeter. And again, I like to look at this visually first, so I'm just going to go flash back and forth between them. And you can see here they're pretty close. You can see down here where the 40 millimeter was a little bit lower than the 44 compared to the chest strap, so that was a little bit worse. You can see this reflected in the accuracy. It's not 0.994 versus 0.997 for the 44 millimeter. And the 44 millimeter also has a slightly better average absolute error at 0.99 beats per minute versus the 40 at 1.09 beats per minute. They're both missing about 2.5 to 2.7% of the data. But overall, for a walk, which is harder than a spin for wearables, this looks pretty good. Now I'll go through the next few walks a little more quickly. So here's the time series for another walk. So as you can see here, we have the 44 millimeter in black, and it's following pretty good. There's a little bit of noisiness here in the chest strap. Now I'm not sure if that's because I am a larger chested woman, so there might be some movement because my bra is overlapping with the chest strap, but I only see that here when my heart rate is below 120 beats per minute, and it's usually in line with the wearables, so it doesn't affect the data too much. And you can see here, you don't see that there, so it's following the line very good here. That's the 44 millimeter Galaxy Watch 8. In the blue, we now have the 40 millimeter Galaxy Watch 8, and that looks very similar to my eye. I can compare the two Galaxy Watch sizes here, and there's a couple differences here and here, but not anything major. And if we bring back the chest strap here, again, you can see there was maybe something slightly off here, maybe a little higher here, but for the most part, this is following the chest strap quite well. And here are the correlation plots. We have the Galaxy Watch 40 millimeter and 44, and I'll flick back and forth so you can see the difference. Again, they're pretty darn close, so that's good. Wrist doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter, significantly at least. And we have approximately all the same accuracy results. We have 0.989 or 0.99 correlation, 0.998 or 999 bias, -7 seconds offset, 1.5 to 1.6 average absolute error, and missing 1 to 2% of the data. And another walk here for you. We've got the time series plots, Galaxy Watch 8 40 millimeter in black. So besides a little flub up right here, it looks very good to my eye. Again, we have these little dots, dips here, I should say, and that's not reflected as much in the wearables, so I'm not sure if those are real or not. So this does affect accuracy somewhat. We go here to the Galaxy Watch 8 44 millimeter. We see the same general trend of following the line quite well. Maybe a single little dip here. Again, doesn't go as far down here as the chest strap did. But let's look at the two Galaxy Watches together. And yeah, the only real divergence here seems a little different here, but that's about it. And we add back the chest strap, and you can see for the most part, again, we are following it pretty well. And here are the correlation plots for that walk. We have the 40 millimeter here versus the chest strap, and the 44 millimeter versus the chest strap. Let's focus on the dots, and I'll flick back and forth. So you can see that there's slight difference. Maybe the 44 millimeter is slightly worse, but it actually looks like it's better correlated here with a 0.9872 versus 0.9887. Again, we're seeing an offset of about 6 to 7 seconds, so that means if your heart rate is actually, at its max or something, it might take 6 to 7 seconds for it to reflect on your wrist. And we're seeing an average absolute error of between 1.2 to 1.3 beats per minute. And again, we're missing about 2 to 2.4% of the data here. Now I did one outdoor bike ride for about 75 minutes, and I was pretty excited to see these results. So here I'm going to show the chest strap versus the 44 millimeter Galaxy Watch 8. And to my eye, it's actually pretty hard to see any real differences, maybe just one little thing at the beginning, but otherwise it almost looks like every single black dot falls on top of a red dot. So that is extremely good. Now we've got in blue the 40 millimeter watch 8. And again, to my eye, this looks quite good. Like this is a pretty intense ramp up from below 100 heart rate to 155 or so. And it looks like it tracked it all very well. And it's tracking these dips here really well, tracking this. You know, we're going up and down in heart rate by over, 30 beats per minute, and it's still tracking very well. And, I'm on a bumpy road, so the wrists are moving, and it's surprisingly good. And if we compare the two sizes on top of each other, it looks like they're matching up well again. So they were on different wrists, and they are different sizes. And I'll bring back the chest straps just so you can see all three on the same plot here. And I'm really happy with this outdoor bike ride heart rate accuracy. All right, so let's look at the correlation plots for that outdoor bike ride. So I have the 40 millimeter and the 44 millimeter. And if you look at the dots first, I'll flick back and forth and you can see just how well they do versus the Polar H10. And we're having a good accuracy, 0.9954. 0.9951, and we're only lagging by about 5 seconds. Average absolute error is under 1 beat per minute, which is quite good, especially for outdoor biking. There are times when the heart rate was 15 beats per minute off, so that's somewhere down here when the Polar was reading about 110 and the Galaxy Watch 44 was reading about 95. And we are missing about just under 4% of the data. That means for each second, there were 4% of those seconds during the ride that did not have a data point for the Galaxy Watch 8. And I only note these because I think it's important. I'm assuming there's no data for the watch if it's not confident in its measurement. So I kind of don't want to give high accuracy results to a watch that's missing like 50% of the data or something, because if you're looking at your watch and you're trying to find the data for your heart rate and it's not there, that's no good and not accurate in my opinion. Now I did do one spin with wearing a Galaxy Watch and my Apple Watch, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here is the Galaxy Watch. This is the 44 millimeter size, and this is the watch versus the chest strap. So you can see here it's following along pretty good. There might be a couple differences here, and here, but those are very minor and not terrible. It's following here really good when my heart rate goes above 160, which is what I personally care most about for heart rate accuracy, is those higher intensity heart rates. So that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and look at the Apple Watch now. This is the Series 10 46 millimeter size in the blue color, and it is following the line, well, let's just say nearly perfectly. So I don't even think I can really point out any major issues here. So let's go ahead and look at the Galaxy Watch in black 44 millimeter size versus the Apple Watch Series 10 46 millimeter size. And there you can kind of see the differences. We do have a little dip here in the Galaxy Watch, maybe a little higher there and a little bit higher here. Otherwise, it does line up pretty good. And again, pretty good here on the higher intensities. And then I can bring back the red, the chest strap line, and you can just see that this data is all looking pretty good. Again, this is a spin though, so it should be the easiest for these watches to do. So let's look at a correlation plot here for the indoor spin. And we've got the Galaxy Watch 8 here and the Apple Watch here on the other screen. So I'm gonna flick back and forth while you look at these dots. And if you're like me, you'll probably see that there's a little bit more tightness around that line for the Apple Watch Series 10. Like this is almost, there's nothing out of line except this little part and this little part. Whereas if we go to the Galaxy Watch 8, we have some flubs here and here and here and here. So it's just not quite as tight of a linear correlation here. And this is reflected here in these two numbers. So the correlation is 0.9974 for the Apple Watch. If we go to the Galaxy Watch, it's 0.9926, so that is a difference. We also do have a little bit lower bias at 0.9987, and for Apple Watch, we actually have a 1.0 perfect score for bias, so that means the Apple Watch is no worse at the higher heart rates as it is at the lower heart rates. So And also you see here the Apple Watch Series 10 was only offset by 3 seconds, whereas the Galaxy Watch was offset by 4. We have a Apple Watch average absolute error is 0.52 beats per minute, so only basically half a beat per minute off on average, whereas the Galaxy Watch is a little bit closer to maybe 1 beat per minute off on average. And this is also amazing too, so this depends on whether the Polar chest strap is measuring correctly as well, so it's not the best metric, but I do include it because it's interesting. So Galaxy Watch 8 maximum was off by 8 beats per minute, so that was probably somewhere around here, one of these data points. But the Apple Watch maximum out of every single data point, and here you'll see, it is missing 0%. So for every second during the workout, it had a heart rate value. It was off by a maximum of 4 beats per minute compared to the chest strap. Now that's probably this data point here. So every single data point during the workout was no more than 4 beats per minute off, which is truly incredible. So I did do a walk with both the Galaxy Watch 8 and the Apple Watch Series 10, so let's take a look at that. So here the Galaxy Watch 8 44mm is the black color, and the Polar H10 is in red. And you can see there is a pretty good matchup here, especially at the end of the walk. Under the 120 to 130 beats per minute. It's a little bit messier with the heart rate chest strap. And we do have a little dip here that wasn't caught by the Galaxy Watch. If that was real or not, who knows. And it takes a little bit in the beginning to kind of warm up or something, but this is not too bad. And then if I show the Apple Watch Series 10, the 46mm size, we have similar here. So it is following a little bit better here in the beginning. It also does not do this low portion, so I'm not sure if that's inaccurate data for the chest strap. Chest straps are not perfect. And we do have this following pretty good. It detected some dips here that the chest strap didn't, so and here it didn't seem to go quite as high. So again, walks are a little bit harder. Even Apple Watch is not perfect. Let's go ahead and look at the Galaxy Watch and the Apple Watch on the same plot. And you can see here the Galaxy Watch is a little bit riding high compared to the Apple Watch. But toward the end, you know, even in the 160s and such, it's overlapping fairly well. And if we bring the chest strap back in, we can see the Galaxy Watch actually got this little peak that the Apple Watch did not. So there's one time it was better at least. And yeah, so a few times it didn't go as low here, but the Apple Watch got it. But overall, these are both tracking the chest strap pretty well. All right, let's take a look at the correlation plot for this walk. So we have the Apple Watch Series 10, and then I'll switch to the Galaxy Watch 8. Again, let's look at these dots and flick back and forth. So yeah, the Series 10 looks like it's a little bit less wide here, especially at these points below 130. And there's a little drop here. That's where the Apple Watch actually did not do as well as the Galaxy Watch. But overall, if we look at the accuracy, it's very close to 1.0. We got actually 0.99 for the Galaxy Watch and 0.9923 for the Apple Watch, so slightly better with the Apple Watch here. They have almost the exact same bias value. The Apple Watch is only lagging 2 seconds behind this time, whereas the Galaxy Watch was about -7 seconds behind. So the watch would show your increase in heart rate or decrease about 5 seconds faster in this example. And we have a little bit better average absolute error for the Apple Watch at 1.18 beats per minute, whereas we have 1.5 beats per minute for the Galaxy Watch. And they're about the same with maximum absolute error with 13 and 14. But again, I want to point this out. So something I've noticed, the Galaxy Watch 8 does have about 2.6% of the time for each second during the workout. It is not giving a recorded heart rate value measurement, whereas the Apple Watch now is giving a heart rate for every single second. So that is something important. You want to look at your wrist and actually see a value and be confident it's a good one. And that might be slightly more the case for the Apple Watch. Now, I told you at the beginning that there was one thing that you really must know about the Galaxy Watch 8 in regard to heart rate accuracy, and that is that wrist placement has made a significant difference for me. So when I usually work out, I usually wear my watches like this. I wear them fairly close to this wrist bone here. And for the most part, modern smartwatches can give accurate heart rate results with that sort of wrist placement. Well, I wore my Galaxy Watch with a comfortable, is what I'll call it, a comfortable wrist placement for a few days before I realized and figured out what was going on. So here's a look at a walk I did before I changed my wrist placement. And this is the Polar H10 chest strap in red, Galaxy Watch 8 44mm in black, Apple Watch Series 10 46mm in blue. And you can see some seriously different deviations here for the Galaxy Watch. Whereas the Apple Watch was following perfectly, the Galaxy Watch was far below. Again, Apple Watch following pretty perfectly, and Galaxy Watch just somehow did not do well here. Although, interestingly, it works sometimes. So from here and beyond, I didn't change my wrist placement, but it did finally figure out how to catch up and start reporting accurately. But this wasn't a one-off, so this was July 25th here, and the next day on the 26th, I did the same walk, and I got some pretty bad, again, results here. And you can see here this big dip here. Even the Apple Watch made a little flub here, so it's not perfect, but it's significantly worse here with the Galaxy Watch. We have more significant things, but it popped up here, so it somehow kind of knew it was supposed to be there, but something was going on. And these little dip here too, but it was able to get these. So it was kind of a perplexing thing to me at first, because I have worn these watches before with this placement and not had as terrible results. But and you can see here how terrible this correlation plot is. I mean, this looks very poor, and the majority of the time the Galaxy Watch is reading lower than the chest strap. But for the 26th, if we go to the Apple Watch, you can see how much better it was. So I'll just do this little flick comparison for you to see there. At first I was like, hey, this is not looking quite good, but I didn't want to publish these results right away, even though I wanted to get you results quickly, because I wasn't sure that that was not human error or something else going on. And the same thing for the next walk on the 25th. This is what the Galaxy Watch correlation plot looked like versus the Apple Watch. So again, quite a bit worse. You want all those dots around the line. So these here are total not good heart rate reading values. All right, so this is just an example of how high and how tight I have to wear these Samsung Galaxy Watch 8s to get accurate heart rate. So you can see this is quite a bit tighter than I would normally wear my watches, and it's also quite a bit higher. You can see my suntan or lack thereof here. I usually wear my Apple Watch at this point, and I can get very accurate heart rate. But for Samsung, if I wear that, the heart rate is not reliably accurate. But it has been so far when I wear it at least 1 to 1.5 finger widths above this wrist bone here. And same on the other side with the 44mm. This is where I was wearing it earlier before my walk, where it's just comfortable. But for accurate heart rate during exercise, I do have to wear it quite a bit higher above this wrist bone here. So in summary, my initial results have shown to me that the Galaxy Watch 8, both 44mm and 40mm sizes, can provide satisfactorily accurate heart rate readings for indoor spinning, outdoor biking, as well as outdoor walking, as long as you wear the watch higher up on your wrist. So do not do this, do this. And in the future, I would like to make some ranking comparisons versus other Galaxy watches, as well as other brands' watches. So look forward to that in the future, and consider subscribing if you want to see those ranking videos. So otherwise, I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.